In the classic 3D movie House of Wax, starring the incomparable Vincent Price, his mad character he plays that runs a wax museum is giving a tour of his subjects, and one of them he comes upon William Kemmler, who was the first person to be executed by electric chair in the history of the States. He gives a little bit of background but didn't tell the whole story because obviously it's a movie plot as a cautionary tale. But the case of Kemmler in 1890 changed the way that the United States looked at execution, changed the way the Supreme Court looked at execution, and in many facets, either people thought it was a good thing, but other people thought it was a cruel and inhuman way to execute someone for the ultimate crime. Now, William Francis Kemmler was an American peddler, alcoholic, and murderer who in 1890 became the first person again in the world to be executed by electric chair. He was convicted of murdering Matilda Tilly Ziegler, his common-law wife, 2 years before. Although electrocution had previously been successfully used to kill a horse, Kemmler's execution did not go smoothly. Now, born in Philadelphia, his parents were immigrants from Germany and both were alcoholics. Good way to start your life. After dropping out of school at age 10, unable to read or write, Kemmler worked in his father's butcher shop. His father died from an infection he received after a drunken brawl, and his mother from complications of alcoholism. In the late 1870s, Kemmler was reportedly slender with dark brown hair and was bilingual, speaking both English and German. After his parents' death, he went into the peddling business and earned enough money to buy a horse and cart. At this point, however, he also became a heavy drinker, mimicking his parents. In one episode involving him and his friends, after a series of drunken binges, he said he could jump his horse and cart over an 8-foot fence with a cart attached to the horse. The attempt was a failure, and his cart and goods were destroyed in the incident. He was known to friends as Philadelphia Billy, and his drinking binges were very well known around the saloons in the Buffalo area. Now, New York Times and published reports detailed aspects of the murder. Now, according to the NYT report, he was a vegetable peddler in the slums of Buffalo, an alcoholic. On March 29, 1988, he was recovering from a drinking binge the night before when he became enraged with his girlfriend, elsewhere referred to as his common-law wife, Tilly Ziegler. He accused her of stealing from him and prepared to run away with a friend of his. When the argument reached a peak, Kemmler calmly went to the barn, grabbed a hatchet, and returned to the house. He struck Tilly repeatedly, killing her. He then went to a neighbor's house and announced he had just murdered his girlfriend. The same day, Kemmler was accused of the murder of Matilda Tilly Ziegler. Kemmler's resulting murder trial proceeded quickly. He was convicted on first-degree murder on May 10th. 3 days later, he was sentenced to death, destined to be the first person executed in the electric chair under New York's no execution law, replacing hanging with electrocution. A chair was ready at the Auburn State Prison. However, the leading developers of electrical power, including George Westinghouse, did not want to see their virtually new product used in this manner. A lawyer filed an appeal claiming the electric chair violated the Eighth Amendment's prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment. Now, on January 1st, 1988, New York had instituted death by electrocution, the first such law ever. After Kemmler's conviction, it was determined that his sentence was to be carried out at Auburn Prison via, again, the new electric chair, a device invented in 1881 by Buffalo, New York dentist Alfred Southwick. After 9 years of development legislation, the chair was considered ready for use. Kemmler's lawyers appealed, arguing that electrocution was cruel and unusual. The plan to carry out Kemmler's execution via electric chair drew the situation into the AC-DC war of warrants between George Westinghouse, the largest supply of alternating current equipment, and Thomas Edison, whose company ran its equipment on direct current. The alternate current that powered electric chair, a current standard adopted by a committee after a demonstration performed at Edison's laboratory by anti-AC activist Harold P. Brown, showing AC's lethality, was supplied by a Westinghouse generator, surreptitiously acquired by Brown. This led to Westinghouse trying to stop what seemed to be Brown and Edison's attempt to try to portray the ACUs and Westinghouse electrical system as the deadly executioner's current, supporting Kemmler's appeal by hiring lawyer W. Burke Cochran to represent him. The appeal failed on October 9, 1889, and the U.S. Supreme Court turned down the case titled in R.E. Kemmler on the grounds that there was no cruel and unusual punishment in death by execution. Now, a little bit of the background to this can also be found on the Duhame.org Law Museum article, which was published a few years ago. Now, in that presentation, it talks about the fact in the Dentistry Journal, the search for a modern humane method of criminal execution was triggered by a freak accident which occurred in Buffalo in 1881. Dr. Southwick happened to witness an intoxicated man die after he inadvertently touched a live generator terminal. Southwick's initial reaction was shock. Later, as he pondered his tragic event, he concluded that electrocution was at least a quick and seemingly painless way to depart from this earth. As his thoughts turned to common methods of capital punishment, Alfred concluded that death by electrocution could become a more humane alternative, as compared with more grisly methods, including hanging. Now, working through the governor of New York and the state legislature, Southwick originated and successfully promoted the passage of laws which mandated electrical executions in New York and approximately 20 other states. During 1888 and 1889, Southwick served on the state's three-person Electrical Debt Commission, a group who reported that electrical execution was superior to all other methods. On January 1st, 1889, the world's first electrical execution law went into effect. Now, because in 1889, Kemmler had the misfortune of being sentenced to death and of being available for the Great Electric Chair Experiment, which was, of course, endorsed by Thomas Edison, the proposition of death by electricity fascinated the public. Electrical services had not been taken over by the government, and private companies saw this as a unique marketing opportunity. Some of them sponsored traveling roadshows, which featured the electrocution of cats and dogs, and even a horse, all for public entertainment. The ultimate was the electrocution of orangutan, considered then to be most similar to a human. Still, electrocution had its doubters. Some believed that no amount of electricity could kill a human, but instead would simply put them in a deep coma. Now, when he found out he was the first to be subjected to electrocution, his lawyers appealed, saying it was cruel and unusual punishment, but the United States Supreme Court again disagreed. And so at the Auburn prison in the state of New York, an oak chair was bolted to the floor, a thick black electrical wire running from the base of the chair to the wall. So this is part one of our part two series on the Kemmler execution. The next part will cover what happened and the tragic results of Kemmler's eventual death, but the improper way it was done. Stay tuned.